All righty. All righty. Good evening, afternoon, and welcome to the January 30th, 2023 Finance Committee of the Akron Public Schools. Thanks, everyone, for coming out for this first Finance Committee meeting of the new year. And so we will jump right into the agenda. As you can see, our previous meeting summary in item 1.01, we essentially reviewed the 5-year forecast for November at that time. And so that's actually the last time we met. Moving on to item 2.01. We are going to get an update on the long-term operations planning. So I'm really excited to hear about that. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I will turn it over to you at this time.
Our sixth and final meeting will be this Thursday evening at 4:30, and that's where we'll come to really an exciting point where they start to make some more concrete recommendations. Then we'll follow that on our timeline with a board retreat on the 8th, which will be my understanding is focus completely on LTOP during that meeting on the 8th. And then we'll come back around one more time at the end of the month where we'll start asking for approvals. But you'll have a lot of opportunity to give input, plenty of time for us to make adjustments to the plan. We'll certainly come to that meeting with multiple options on the table, and any of them could be changed based on the feedback that we receive, because we understand this is really your first deep dive into this will be on the 8th. So I would be surprised if we didn't make some changes. But there are some new things that I think are important for you to be aware of. One of our pressing issues as it relates to LTOP is the fact that we are losing the space for our STEM high school, although we're able to arrange a deal to extend it for 9 more months. So that's really important in the planning process to give us that opportunity to find a new home. We are investigating a couple of different options. An exciting option for us on the table right now, a building you may have heard of, the Morley Medical Building downtown. It is right next to STEM Middle School. So we have begun the preliminary discussions with the architects and the city. We would obtain the building on a swap, so no cost to the district for acquiring the ownership of the building, but obviously there are significant needs in terms of renovation of the facility. So on the 8th, again, we'll go more detail about the exact floor plans and what that looks like. It's about a 60,000 square foot building. It meets our needs from a size perspective, but obviously there's an investment that needs to be made in that building in terms of renovation. And there are other options that will be discussed as well for that building. Another important, I think, really strikes at equity when it comes to athletics. I think most of us understand that one high school doesn't look like another in terms of facilities that are available. So we're exploring in this plan, and again, more detail on the 8th, but to look at the Kent property and how collaboration with us, and we're reaching out to the city. We actually meet this week, so I'll be able to give you more information on the 8th, what that might look like, but a joint collaboration potentially for athletic facilities that could really benefit both our athletes and benefit the city as well and the residents in the city. So it's an exciting opportunity, and there is some funding available potentially for that. And speaking of funding, you'll learn more about what it looks like, and Todd will go more into depth on it as well. but we've been exploring a funding mechanism known as COPS, that is Certificates of Participation. It is legal in the state of Ohio. It is a way to potentially generate revenue to do some of these projects. No shock to you or surprise to you, there is a payment that you generate from creating debt. It works much like a mortgage might on your own home, and schools are allowed to do that up to 9% of their total property valuation and debt without a community vote. So it was a board decision to make. So we'll explore that in more detail so you can have those options. Not every option we present on the 8th will require that, but that is an option on the table for you to consider. We also are exploring grants, and we feel pretty good about a grant opportunity to obtain some HVAC equipment to the tune of about $5 million. So that will help us, certainly not fund an entire project, but help us offset the costs of those projects to some degree. And then the last piece, which is comes with lots and lots of restrictions, but there is a possibility you could use ESSER, a piece of ESSER funds in this total project as well, if we chose to, or if you chose to. So that's my update. Take that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Our internal team is meeting to finalize a look at our ESSER funds, and we need to make some modifications to it for a variety of reasons. So both to see how it is we might support some of our LTAP needs, but as well, how do we really support the district's overall budget as we think about, we've just settled contracts, things of that nature. So all in all, without going into too much detail today, we're going to be offering to you by your next meeting, here's a point of view about ESSER funds and how we might make some modifications. Still staying very true to the overall expected uses of those funds, but also addressing some of these other needs. So it'll be a both and. We do. Yep. Yep. So we'll do that. And so as Dr. Thompson said, so he really built up that the 8th is really important because that's our chance to go deeper with the board and into here's the various scenarios of options, here's the recommendations that are coming from the committee, but also that you know kind of what other options that was looked at, inclusive of some of those newer things that came to light. So just because some newer ideas or facilities have presented themselves don't necessarily mean that that's exactly what we should do, but we want you to have the information that we have. So, and then there was just one other small piece. We also, in the time that we started this project and up till today, we did as well get a final report from the group that we hired to do an enrollment study on the district to begin to look a few years out, from now until 8 years out, to see what our enrollment trends are looking like. So we finally got that report as well. So we want you to have that information that as we make decisions, our overall footprint will continue to change because our enrollment will continue to change. And that's something that not only we here in Akron will experience, but actually all districts across the country are getting smaller just because there are less children, school-age children. So we'll also be sharing here's how we thought about the enrollment patterns as it relates to some of the recommendations that we're making as well. Okay. So I think one of the things we wanted to make sure that with those dates in mind, that will have us hit our March 1st deadline that the board had put before us as a target. So that means on the 27th, that's the board meeting, we would be asking you all to take some board action as it relates to LTOP. And then on the 21st, I think you already said that, we would be able to have, prior to that 27th, at the next finance capital management meetings, would have any fiscal aspects of that reviewed here. Is there anything else you're feeling like, whether it be from a fiscal standpoint or just a question at large, that you're telling us that even as we come to you on the 8th, or definitely by the 21st when we come back to this meeting, you would want us to make sure that we have a point of view about? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, because you can think about that and let us know up until that meeting, but if anything were top of mind, we just wanted to leave space for that as well. Okay.
And so I think you're going to inform us on that, because I was understanding and share that. But I think it's interesting to me, if we're talking about a decline, or we're seeing such an influx in areas like North Hill, that it would seem that we would have a pressing need to see with those buildings becoming oversaturated with this influx of transits, refugees,
Yep.
people that we would have to be projecting, okay, how are we moving them, and very intentional with the budget, because now we're talking about transportation and also building, because I'm just curious about that, especially because we have to project and make decisions based off of that later on. Like almost like the census, like this many children, or the average household is this,
Yep.
these children will pour into this. What is our average? Then it leaves me, but the study may cover all this, superintendent, so please forgive me, because I'm wondering, what is our amount of refugees that are coming to our area? What type of trend have we seen? Because then that can give us projections on what we will need. And I think this may be data that you have.
It is, and so but you're dead on. So I just want to say that how you're thinking about that is right on target. We will have that information. One of the things you did say that I'm not sure we have accounted for as well right now that we can before we meet with you all is some of the transportation implications, so that as we're making some of the recommendations, we can also just highlight for you. We might not be able to be exact, but we can highlight, we estimate that this is the type, we'd be transporting this many more students, or we'd have to accommodate this type of support need, because if we, for instance, in the North Cluster that has a concentration of students that often require translation services and things of that nature, so if we make this type of recommendation, then that will increase services over in this area as well. So we'll be sure to try to highlight some of that implication, and then be able to put some target dollars to that, as well as the overall, facility needs, just so that we have a rounder picture about what that looks like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know
That's all right.
with that, because when I visited Forest Hill last week, a couple weeks ago, that was one of the things as far as enough people around the clock, like not a part-time interpreter or that's spread between two buildings, but the need to have someone that was there on a more daily, continual basis for the day, to really be able to meet the needs of the families and really making sure that things were being properly communicated. So when you talk about also those additional services that will be required, those are all the things to look at to make the best decision.
Yeah. Okay.
And so is the high school lease that just runs for this school year?
We've been, I don't know how many years we've been there, but part of what the lease says is that when the university is, when we've exhausted our lease, that the university would have to give us minimally, basically a year's notice before they're making any other decisions about the building. They too are involved in a LTOP set of exercises because they're thinking about their university footprint and what their needs are as they look into the future and how their programs are shifting. So they've been making, quite a few moves, including you saw recently where the Knight Foundation decided to invest in the Polsky building because that's a part of how they're thinking about their overall programs and services. So that's going to be renovated and provide some expansion there. One of the things that they've realized is they don't have need programmatically for the Central Howard building. So they've already pulled their services out of that building where they're alone. So they were giving us our year's notice. But then, we discovered in our exercises we need more time. So we requested more time as we make our decisions here about how to land that school next. And so they were able to accommodate that. So we have an additional 9-month lease extension that they are giving us, but then that's it. So we should have been coming out of that building at the close of this academic year because they did notify us at the beginning of this year. But with all that's going on and, and the fact that we were engaged in a long-term planning exercise, we were able to negotiate with them a 9-month extension. Anything else?
Is Morley currently in use for anything? Is it sitting empty?
So I go through Morley a lot going down to the courthouse. Morley is totally empty right now. There's nobody up there, nothing. I park in the deck there, and there's nobody in there.
We haven't,
Yeah.
we need to have our microphones on. I was just telling.
No,
Anything on YouTube, it will be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, my mic is on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious about Morley because I know when I used to go in there years ago, when the health department was there, it was in pretty bad shape then. So I would be interested to see how much we'd have to do to actually get that building ready.
It would require essentially gutting the entire building. We are fortunate that the police did go in and use it for some training, and why that's good is because they disturbed the asbestos in the building, so they had to abate it, and that's very expensive. So thank you, they abated it.
Yeah.
So that part's done, but it would be a complete
Yeah.
renovation, probably at approximately half the cost of what it would be to construct a new facility
Okay.
without, of course, purchasing the land.
And the setup is good. The placement there right with the middle school is obviously very good and all that. So I definitely want to have that as an option that we should consider for sure.
And, I don't know whether this will be good or bad, so I'm not saying it with any kind of value attached to it, but there also would be our assessing the parking deck, because the parking deck would come with that as well. And so right now, for our persons who park at even NIF-STEM, parking can be challenging down there. So, and I'm not saying that to influence one way or another, because we really have to evaluate it in the total scheme of all of our needs. And so that's what we're doing is, hopefully presenting this in terms of the full spectrum of needs and saying what is the best package to move forward.
One of the parts I like also, Steve, Doctor, you're saying that there will be no cost to APS. It's a building swap, you said, of some sort? So, that's obviously very important to me.
Yes, certainly. We acquire the building at no cost. Our cost would be in renovations, and on the 8th, we'll go into a deep dive on what that looks like and what the building would even look like internally.
What would be the property that we're swapping? Do we not know yet?
The person we need is our encyclopedia of all things APS, Deborah Folk. So hopefully I'll get that information for you by the 8th. I'm not sure.
All right, thank you.
70 North Broadway.
Can you speak a little bit more about COPS? Are there other districts who've used this before? Like, I've never heard of this. before?
Yes, there are. In my previous district, we did. So I'm very familiar with how they work. But think of it just like a mortgage. It's a low-interest loan to the district, financed over 30 years. You can refinance them later if interest rates come down. You can later pass a bond issue and cover the payment with a bond issue. So there are multiple options, but a district can, like I said previously, take out an APS, a fairly large amount. We wouldn't be recommending larger than what you feel like we need. It just depends on how many projects that are left to take on. How many do you want to take on, and what's the time frame? And that's where we'll really have that discussion, and we'll go into great detail about exactly how much would be an expenditure per year, how does it impact the 5-year forecast. We'll have that all worked up for you as well, and what we would pay in interest payments, what we would pay to the principal, all of those things.
As it relates to that, and I think through our previous discussions, we've been trying to explore. We know that where our needs are and where available resources are don't exactly match up. So there is a need for some additional funds from somewhere. So that's why we've been just trying to explore, what other options are out there that are available to districts. We know that one of those options is, thinking through a levy, and, but we also have needs both operationally and as it relates to facilities. So we're just trying to think as creatively as possible what other avenues might exist for us to be able to have resources to consider, and then we'll lay out those options before the board, and the board can guide us.
Any other questions at all? No? Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, Superintendent. So we will move on to item 2.02, ESSER overview.
Actually, 2.02, just future discussion topics.
Okay. So,
And I think that was kind of weaved into the last conversation, is that also at the next meeting, we want to be prepared to come to you to say, here's how we're thinking about modifying our current plans for ESSER dollars. And so here's the different moves that we make. Here's where we might stay true to our plans. Here's where we will shift gear.
and it will be helpful, I know at least for me, that little gas gauge that we use all the time that just kind of shows where we're at in terms of spending. I think that's just helpful as well to have.
Yeah, we'll have that.
We'll send that out ahead of the meeting, and even with some, kind of talking points, that we can kind of talk through. But we keep that current. Yeah.
And so looking at those future discussion topics, or anyone on the committee have any topics to add or consider?
Well, not for me. I mean, I'd be interested, obviously, every month in going over what we have on the schedule there. So, it looks good to me.
The levy prep. That's something like how soon to get out in front of something like that. I'm just curious. It seems like the more information the public has as far as the need, the more likely they would be to support it. To some degree. I'm just wondering what is our strategy for that, and that might be our PR people. Yeah, so just some information on what type of strategies are we going to do instead of just signs and things that say vote for issue or vote for this levy. I always say that regardless if you have a child in APS, if you own property in Akron, if you work in Akron, you have a direct vested interest in what comes out of Akron Public Schools, because it will directly impact your property values. It will directly impact industry within the community. So I'm just curious as what does levy prep look like, and how is the message being told to where I don't have to have children attend, but I understand the reason why I should invest and pay towards a levy in this community.
Make it important to everyone who's involved in Akron, not just people who have people in the school or kids in the school.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the media, the recent coverage of how schools are being painted, the picture, could cause some disheartening of individuals of putting money into the school district. So they have to see the broader picture that if I'm not directly connected, I am still directly connected if I live, buy, sell, do business within the city. Mm-hmm. And even though we see, and we've been seeing this constant narrative of, and this is just my opinion, I think a lot of the reading has spoken to a falling apart school system that's heavy laden with violence. It's not saying how we're graduating students that are attending four-year universities, students that become doctors, students that come back and speak at Project Grad and give money to scholarships, and how we have students becoming entrepreneurs. That whole story is being, overlooked because, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? And whatever narrative is pushed the most is pushed, right? So I think I'm just curious on how can we tell the overall picture. Work does need to be done, but we can't just give up on our community schools, because in a sense we're giving up on our communities that we live in, that we have thrived in, that we love, that have given birth to students like myself. I'm a product of Akron Public, and I think they did a really good job for me, and I'm thankful for that experience. But I'm 40 plus years old, right? It's more of me that's coming up the ranks that exist, that are innovative, that will be game changers. So how is that story told long enough, early enough, that we change the mind, that we begin to shift the mindset, not change it, because work needs to be done, but it gives a whole picture, not a... Yes, ma'am. Perfectly said. More of a balance.
And I think you said it well, Ms. Jackson. And I think we're the ones who carry that message as well. I mean, we were community elected, and so that same community is who we need to continue speaking with. And I know everywhere I go, I'm trying to constantly point out the benefits and everything that APS offers. And I challenge people to, look at a similar sized district and compare, and really, you'd be hard-pressed to truly say that, APS just doesn't have anything to offer.
We have the offerings, but it's getting to how are we telling a story about, listen, yes, it's work to do. Here are the action steps. This is what we're doing. This is the actions we're taking for cell phone. This is the actions we're taking for violence. This is how we're cleaning our schools up. But our schools offer all this programming for young people so that they become productive and informed citizens in our community. We need your support to continue to clean up our schools, to continue to support the funding of what it costs to keep our schools safe, to, things. Because I'm from Akron, born and raised, and I've seen many levies and issues that come up. And I'm going to tell you, when early on, and I've owned property in Akron since I was 19 years old. And I never cared about a levy for the schools other than I'm a citizen, I vote, I'm voting for, you know what I mean? But if it would have been, if I was paying attention, if I was hard pressed for monies at that time, and I would be like, oh, and I'm a product of Akron, like, what, my kid I don't have a kid that's in school right now, things like that, because I think at that time my daughter wasn't even in school yet. So I'm just putting that out there because I'm a voter. And I vote in every election, since March of 1998, right? But it's the information piece, I think, for me, that if I now, as an informed, wiser, older, count my pennies, child in college person, what is this going to do to my tax bill? And what is my skin in the game? And then if it's because I'm worried about what's walking down my streets, what's coming out these schools. And so just... kind of just want to be informed, and that can be in any type of way. That can be a meet, that could be a sidebar, whatever. I just want to know.
So it sounds like we want to hear about, what's a timeline, and I think that would align perfectly to where are we when we think about the 5-year forecast, and so we'll be talking about that. But 2, what's an engagement strategy?
Yes.
That really is going to tell a more balanced, story of what our schools are about, because our schools are not just one facet. We have lots of great things happening as well. And then this whole overall messaging of the schools are an investment within our community. So schools belong to all of us, and in fact, in our city, they are community learning centers, and so primarily, and that they are providing value and benefit to all of us. So all of us should care. Whether we have school-age children or not, our schools, there's a interdependence between the quality of our schools and the quality of our city.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
And with us being an educational entity as well, as dry as it can be, I think it's important that we educate folks on how schools are funded. And I know we started some of that work with Mr. Pendleton. We actually have an advocacy page that we work together on putting that describes how schools are funded, going way back to 1976, which is the root of all of this with House Bill 920. And so that's actually on our website. It might be kind of dry, but, how do we bring it to life and make people understand it? Because prior to me being on this board, I didn't have a good understanding of how schools were funded. I'm just thinking, well, what are they doing with the money? Not understanding that the root of all of this is embedded in the Ohio Constitution. And so that's why we have to keep coming back. But educating people on that, how do we do it in a way that makes it attractive, it holds your attention? I know I went to a recent conference and attended a workshop. And this particular company, it might sound juvenile, but they created cartoons. You think about Schoolhouse Rock, that type of thing, but we all remember conjunction, junction, what's your function? We all remember that. And so thinking about that, that's a good way, I think, maybe as well to approach just educating people on the need, why we come around and ask for levies the way that we do. But we do have a foundation actually already on our website, and so maybe we can kind of grow from there. I know we just made a bunch of investments in our marketing, so maybe we need to kind of create some type of video library of that.
Because people want to see a return. As a community, as a member of the community, I want to see a return on my investment. So I want students coming out of school informed, registered voters with skin in. I want students coming out of school with a plan. If we're saying we have enroll, enlist, employ, and entrepreneurship, I want to be able to speak to where our children are and what they're doing and showing these are your children. These are the children from your community. This is Akron. To really, in a very real, authentic way, not just fluff. Yes, we have these programs, but how is that impacting me? If I'm sewing into the school district paying taxes, it may sound like a selfish thing, but it's the reality. What is my return on my investment? Because it's not kids walking down the street uninformed, not voting where certain dollars are spent that benefit the community because they don't show up to the polls. I'm talking about schools pouring out informed individuals where children know they're not leaving our schools and not registered to vote. How is that possible in our democracy that children go to a school in the United States of America, turn 18, and every 18-year-old, just as part of when they're filling out to graduate, are not registered voters in the United States? It should be unheard of, right? Because your vote matters, and I need you to know that, because when these initiatives and who's running the country, I need that type of investment to where you have more ownership, that you're not walking around tearing up the community or idle. It's more vested. So I think Superintendent said it well. I'm just belaboring her point, the interconnectedness and where everyone's seeing that. I think it has to be told, but it has to be real. Like when we talk about we have community learning centers, they're CLC, they're for the community. Are they? Do the community see it that way?
Are the community benefiting from the CLCs? Are they able to maximize and utilize these centers? So do they feel, yes, we're behind the public school system. We utilize this facility for this. We want to keep these facilities looking well. All of that matters. And so it's just really getting to that point and building those relationships. And as I said, the superintendent said it. I don't need to keep saying it, but I'm just passionate about it because it's like we have to get over this and get to, we are Akron. Wonderful things happen in Akron. We are a city that is innovative. It's creatives here, all types of things. So let's highlight that. LeBron James is from here. You know, Christopher, Cordell Livingston are from here. We have people, not just athletic, we have robotics contest winners from Buchtel High School are here. You know, let's spend time and let's rest on that. That's Buchtel, yeah, the school that all the violence is written about. Let's see a full page front article about a robotics first place winner or Gates Millennium Scholars and what they're doing and where they're at. It exists. So it's that full story, and then getting to the work of the mess because you have to clean out. Work has to be done. And we're getting to it. Strong security, you know, whatever it is that we need. You know, but that's
said.
my own thing. Like,
Well said.
yeah.
Thank you for that input. Anything else? Okay. And so the fiscal calendar is listed here under 4.01, so we can see what's forthcoming, what to expect here. I don't know if there's any questions at all about that or comments.
I mean, they're showing nothing for February. We've taken care of the January items, and next thing in March is acceptance of tax rates.
There are also, while it isn't, I think, explicit in those things listed, we did just discuss quite a few, you know, another preview of the forecast, modifications to the ESSER report, things of that nature that are also going to come in February. So I think February is going to be LTOP recommendations with financial implication. So, yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, it's just the calendar here. It looks like a few of us are going to be attending the inaugural COSBA conference coming up. And so, and it looks like that's the end of the agenda. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns, anything?
I'm just looking forward to the February 8th meeting for sure. It's going to be very informative, it sounds like. So looking forward to that.
I'm very thankful for this meeting. The touch points, I think, were right on point. So thank you all for your time and preparing for just today. As Perry said, I'm looking forward for that meeting as well.
Absolutely. Did you have something, Dr. Akbar?
I had two things. One, sorry for being late. I had to drive here from Cleveland. But for the long-term planning, operation plan presentation, are you able to send that out electronically so that I know I missed it, but I would like to get it before it's presented. And for whatever reason, February 8th didn't show up on my calendar until Friday, so I might not be able to be there. So that's kind of a challenge for me. But I would like to be able to provide input and preview the presentation. And then the other thing, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's a tax subsidy that's out, and I wish I could find it. I wrote notes about it, but apparently I can't find it right now. For like electric cars, but electric vans, but it also allows you to get a tax subsidy for having like solar panels, leasing your land to the electric company to have solar panels to convert some of the, and I forget what it's called, but it's a huge inflation, from the Inflation Act. That's what it's called. Sorry.
So like for our green buildings?
Yes. But also ensuring that like our fleet and all the other things are can run off clean energy. And the other piece of it was I was reading, I think it was Toledo already does this, where they lease some of their land to the electric company, and they have the solar panels there, and the energy that comes there, they're able to use, but also the energy company is buying it back to lower the cost of energy when energy rates are high. I might be messing this up completely, but that's the basis of what I read. And it sounds like a good program. Overall, it's supposed to save districts a lot of money, especially on our electric costs, because we also would get additional discounts potentially from the electric company. So saying all that to say, I'm wondering, is that something we've already looked into or something we're planning on looking into as far as we're talking about finances and knowing our financial forecast?
I'm not aware that we've looked into that, and we can. So, so it is something that we can definitely, I know Toledo, like has been trying to look at their long-term planning and looking at costs and things of that nature. So we can definitely reach out to them and see what they've creatively found to do, and to see if it's something that we could do here as well.
And I remember it's called Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Are you not familiar with that?
You may or may not be aware that we did in the first round of the federal government offering of transitioning buses to electric. We did apply for that grant, and didn't receive the grant. So at least through first round, and I believe Toledo was a part of that as well. One of the challenges with electricity, using the solar electricity, is a lot of times they want to mount them on your roofs, which does bring some significant challenges from the perspective of maintaining the roofs. Not that you couldn't put them on the ground, but we don't have a lot of open space, so that's a bit of a challenge. But we will definitely continue to look into that and see what is economically possible. And then in your first comment about the LTOP, we're really hoping that it's not, although there is a presentation piece, it's more of a workshop. So I hope that you can make it. And some of the information I have for you is so large I couldn't email it, but I will definitely get you your binder ahead of time, Dr. Akbar, if you aren't able to attend. And I'm sure that the superintendent and I would sit down with you and catch you up also if you're unable to attend on the 8th.
Right. And I appreciate that. So thinking about, the binder just gave me a little anxiety. So I'm assuming there's going to be a pared down presentation that's going to supplement the binder, because everyone's not going to have time to read. That looks like that's at least 3 times my dissertation. So that's one thing
There will be a pared down presentation. The binder is more so just like if you have questions, it's more of the artifacts, to kind of take you back in where you can look at, well, what did that look like? Because sometimes even in looking at the overall recommendations, other ideas will pop up. Well, I wonder if we could do that. And this is our time where we want to have, as we're finalizing a go forward, that we, finish testing all ideas to solve the multiple questions that we're trying to solve for. So it'll be a both and. Both, we will be able to have a pared down presentation, and we can save time to walk you through that and to get your feedback, but also we will have binders that are more of the artifacts.
Thank you.
I like the artifacts, so I'm looking forward to my binder. I'm old school like that. And also, I just wanted to piggyback on Dr. Akbar. Is could you also, when we're talking about this clean air and the energy and these electric cars and all this, could you have something that tells us if we do have our district vehicles upgraded in some type of way, what the care and maintenance of that will be? Because I recently read an article where it cost someone $28,000 to replace their battery in their Tesla. So I'm just curious as to what would it's all nice and it'll save money maybe in the front end, but I'm just the overall implications of long-term care of electric vehicles for transportation, because the other, as far as lighting buildings and things like that, I think that would be a significant cost reduction. That would be great to find solar panels as far as buildings. And I heard superintendent say something about our green buildings or what that looks like. So I think that would be good. But so I think that's good. But I definitely want to know about transportation, like projected costs. Okay, if we can do this, but the actual upkeep of this, the care and maintenance of an electric bus would be this, and this is how often if it even exists, to be able to give that type of to inform us in that way as far as this is what it could cost. Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? So if there's no other, nothing else to consider, we will adjourn the meeting at this time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you. Dr. Thompson.